Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Gainesville Tuesday meeting at the Cade Museum. Please silence your cell phones, and if you're watching on YouTube, please register your participation by sending an email to info@rotarygainesville.org. Please join me in welcoming Tom Collette to lead us in song and pledge.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome. Who's going to the game Saturday? Anybody? 3 people raised their hands? Craig's shaking his head. No. Well, let's all get arm in arm as Rotarians and practice for what happens between the third and the fourth quarter at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. Hopefully we're beating Miami by then and it's a foregone conclusion. Are you ready? We're going to do We Are the Boys. We are the boys of old Florida, Florida, where the girls are the fairest, the boys are the squarest of any old state down our way. Hey! We are all strong for old Florida, down where the old Gators play. Go Gators! In all kinds of weather, we'll all stick together for Florida. You're all hired. And now please join me, our group, as we pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Leading us in our invocation today, Lori Vidal.
Thank you. Let's pray together. It is a good feeling to walk into this extremely pleasant facility, interacting with so many people with whom we have history. We are certainly a family of sorts. And together, we have been through so many meetings, events, life transitions, both delightful and painful. And as Rotarians meeting regularly for years, the family has come together again today. And as the family of Rotary meets, we ask you, Heavenly Father, to help us create opportunities that are beneficial to all concerned. May we operate as a family, create goodwill and better friendships among us. And so we now ask for your blessings upon those who have joined us today to help us focus on the how-to of creating strong families throughout our community. And now, as the family of Rotary meets, I pray in your most loving name. Amen.
We invite all guests and traveling Rotarians to remain standing and introduce themselves to our club.
Good afternoon, everyone. That was really loud. I'm Ginger Griffith. I am with Partnership for Strong Families, and thank you guys for having me today as your guest. I think I just decided we need a new policy at Partnership. We are going to start every meeting with a song as well, because that was awesome.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris Cano. I'm pleased to introduce Chelsea Boland today. Chelsea's the Outreach Recruitment Specialist at Partnership for Strong Families. She was a UF grad, taught first graders in Gainesville for 5 years, and now works in a role to increase awareness about adoption and fostering. And Chelsea and her husband also have been foster parents since 2021 and have adopted their 2 kids. Please welcome Chelsea.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Mary Kate Walker, and my guest is Ben Milik. He is my Palliser furniture rep.
And if you'll join me in welcoming John Gregory to the podium, he has a poem to share with us.
I'm wearing the construction hat because next Monday is Labor Day. And since it's Monday, anyway, this one's called Labor Day Banks. Doesn't it just irk when unemployed people shirk? For Labor Day, these folks, I have a few jokes, but really none of them work. Matthew Brady, as a banker for loan, in his work, he thought he'd really grown. His boss didn't agree, and so set him free, simply for the lack of interest he'd shown. You better smile. One guy tried to pull some stunts, stole a bank calendar, such a dunce. Judge Toby found he was caught, and Monaco couldn't be bought. This guy was sentenced to 12 months. Calendar, 12 months. Well, Olympics were on, explained Ed. Alice Maid obviously had him misled. As it worked, confessed, she was second best. She took the silver and immediately fled. Happy Labor Day.
We have quite a few announcements today from our fellow Rotarians. Up first is Dwight McKee.
Hey everybody, if you see on your table, save the date. The Seafood Spectacular is coming up November 21st, and it's always a great Rotary event. Tickets are $60 a piece, 5 for $250, and again, it'll be November 21st. That's the Thursday before Thanksgiving. And last year we had, close to a little over 500 people to come out. So it's a lot of fun. All right. And let's see. I don't know where Tom is. Where's Wilbur? There's Tom, but where's Wilbur? Wilbur and I will be chairing the event this year. So if you have any questions, you see Wilbur or myself. And Tom, I just wanted to say that was a lovely song you sang. But I want to let my fellow Rotarians know that there is a storm coming to the swamp. Okay? So look out, guys. Storm coming to the swamp on Saturday. I don't get to do this very often, so thank you.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. I'm here to announce the car show again. This is not the first time I've mentioned it. It is won't be the last. But on your tables are the flyers about the sponsorships. This is Butler Plaza's event, and it's a fundraising event, and they have selected our Rotary clubs to be the recipients. 100% of the sponsorship dollars will go back to the Rotary clubs. So they've asked us to help sell sponsorships. The various packages, again, is on your tables. If you have any questions, you can email me, you can email Wes. We'll be happy to put you in touch with them. If you know anybody with a car-related business or somebody that's interested in cars, definitely let them know about the sponsorships available. Again, the funds will come back to the Rotary clubs for us to use in the community. And I'm happy to email this to anybody if you need it. So look forward to that. And as we get closer to the event, I'll be putting out a call for volunteers because we will need help on the day of. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Wilbur. I'm with the Chainsaw Gang. Activating the Chainsaw Gang. We have an oak tree down out at Hatchet Creek. It kind of glancingly hit the trailer out there. So we're going to go out and do an assessment, but I will need some help. And Sort of apropos, there is a storm coming to our area, but I understand it's going to be a flaccid tropical storm. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I believe I'm next. Mini library project. Well, finally have something to report. The project was brought to us by Morgan Killingsworth, a grad student in community health, as you may recall, a while back. Well, with Morgan and the young professional Rotaractors of Gainesville and our club, we have built 5 of these mini library units to be installed in underserved neighborhoods of Gainesville. This past Friday, Morgan, a friend of hers, Eloise, from the G&V for All chapter at UF, Wes and Champ, who have been big stalwarts of helping get this through the finish line. We went to the Child Early Learning Center, and the Southwest Advocacy Center to install 2 units. And so we look forward to inviting everyone to a future date to be determined to install books and have a book launch for these mini libraries. So here we are installing one of them. And also that's Morgan on the right. That's Morgan digging and her friend Eloise from the Gainesville chapter at UF. And anyway, I hope you guys can join us for the unveiling when we do those. So now I'm changing gears. This is for a craft talk. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Rebecca Nagy. Now, for some in the club, she needs no introduction, as she was a member of this club for 14 years. Rebecca served as the director of the Harn from 2002 to 2018. After retiring, she joined her husband, Paul, who was serving out his professional career in Tampa. Even during retirement, Rebecca stayed engaged in her community, joining the Rotary Club of Tampa, the Citizens Committee for Downtown Tampa, and several other civic organizations. Rebecca's professional and civic engagement has shown through her career and volunteer work for organizations such as the Harn, the Leitner Museum in St. Augustine, the Harry B. Plant Museum in Tampa, Florida, the Matheson History Museum here in Gainesville, and many other organizations along with professional organizations. Rebecca and Paul have recently moved back to Gainesville after Paul's retirement, and we are so excited to have them both home. And with that, please give a warm Rotary welcome to Rebecca Nagy.
Okay, you sing 3 minutes? All right. Thank you. Greg told you a little bit about my professional background, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I love and love to do. So my husband Paul and I both love cities. We've been married for 35 years, and we've lived in several cities. We always live right in the heart of downtown. So in the 5 years that I lived with him in Tampa before he finally got ready to retire in June, we lived in one of those tall 35-story towers in the center of Tampa, where we had fabulous view of the skyscrapers and all the surrounding waters. And we could walk across the street to the Art Museum, the Performing Arts Center, the main library, the Riverwalk, and lots of good restaurants and bars and coffee shops. So all that time, though, we kept our place in Gainesville because we knew that when Paul retired from Hillsborough Community College, where he was a vice president, we were moving back to Gainesville because Gainesville is home. We had kept our place, which is at Regents Park in the duck pond, kind of the edge of the duck pond, right behind the Commerce Building, you know where that is, right across from the main art library, the main civic library. So again, we could walk to things that we love, like the Matheson, the Thomas Center, the HIP, the restaurants, the coffee shops downtown, and it's really a lot of fun. Another thing that we love to do is travel. And we've traveled a lot around the world, but during the pandemic, we sort of got out of the habit, and then Paul got so busy trying to finish up his work in Tampa that we haven't been on a trip in a while. So right now, we're busy planning our next trip abroad, which will be to Egypt in the spring. I've been to Africa a lot, mostly for work, because I do research on African artists, contemporary artists. So I counted up, I've been 15 times to Africa. So this will make trip number 16. But I did want to mention that one of the best trips that Paul and I ever have been on was to Cambodia with Susan and Richard and the group going to visit the various projects that Sustainable Cambodia has over there. If you've considered going, if you can go, I would highly recommend that you take the leap and go. It was one of the greatest experiences of our lives. And ever since then, we've been sponsors for students in Cambodia in grade school and at the university. Another thing that Paul and I love doing is reading. And now that he's retired, he's started reading almost as many books as I do. So we kind of trade books back and forth. One of the things we're very happy about is this new bookstore downtown. If you haven't been over to the Links yet, Lauren Groff's bookstore is just a block or so from here. It's a beautiful bookstore, great reading material, and lots of interesting programs. So a great addition to downtown. And I think, I'm almost out of time. So we don't have any children, but we have a cat. So yes, I am not crazy, but a childless cat lady.
Thank you, Rebecca. We're so glad to have you back in Gainesville and back in our club. And now please join me in welcoming our president, Ryan Thompson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. Welcome, guests. Last Saturday, we had the Vibrant Club workshop. Deborah Newell and I attended with a few others from our area club. Over 150 exuberant Rotarians sharing creative ways on how we can adapt and increase our impact in the community, expand our outreach, and enhance member engagement. One of the messages that stuck with me that I think is really important for us to remember is it's not what we do, it's the impact of what we do. And not just having service projects and doing things to be active. We're all active. This is an extremely active club, which I'm realizing day by day even more. But I think this should be the guide when we're determining what activities we do in the club. So just wanted to share that. Also, at the workshop, this is the district's recognition of clubs that achieved the Rotary citation. Beginning each year, club presidents are asked to fill out goals to engage their members, increase their impact, stay relevant in their communities, and run more efficiently. Under the leadership and hard work of Linda Reinhardt, our club was one of only 16 out of the 75 clubs within our district to receive this award. So at this time, I'd like to invite Linda up to receive this award. Thank you, Linda, for your dedication and hard work. We really appreciate you ensuring that we're an active club and receiving this 2023-2024 Rotary citation. At this time, I'd like to invite Guy Jopling to introduce today's speaker.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. It is my honor to introduce our speaker today, Ms. Ginger Griffeth. She became the president and CEO of Partnership for Strong Families in June of 2022, bringing with her over 20 years of dedicated experience in child welfare. A passionate advocate for family preservation and prevention, Ms. Griffith has devoted her career to improving the lives of children and families across Florida. She earned her degree in psychology from Florida State University, which laid the foundation for her extensive work in community-based care. Throughout her career, Ms. Griffith has held various roles on the front lines of child welfare, gaining a deep understanding of the challenges faced by children and families involved in the child welfare system. During her recent 8-year tenure with Florida Department of Children and Families, she oversaw critical policy and programs such as prevention, child protection, investigations, human trafficking, child welfare, case management, adoption, and independent living. She also held positions in the state's Child Welfare Quality and Innovation Office in the capacity of Chief Quality Officer within the department, overseeing qualitative, quantitative, and performance improvement data and outcomes for child welfare, substance abuse, and mental health. A lifelong resident of Levy County, Ms. Griffith continues to reside there with her family, deeply connected to the communities she serves. I'll also say that firsthand is serving on the board of partnership, the amazing work that she does for that organization. I will also say the amazing work that organization does in helping me adopt my daughter. And so I'm more than happy to introduce our speaker today, Ms. Ginger Griffith.
Good afternoon. So my first question is this. How many of you have heard of Partnership for Strong Families before? Ah, that makes me so happy. You have no idea how often we get out into the community and we find out that even though Partnership for Strong Family has been in existence and operation for over 20 years, folks still aren't quite sure what we do. Are you sure what we do? No. That's okay. That's okay, because I wanted to thank you all for inviting me today to share with you what we do, give you a little context of what's going on not only in Alachua County, but the 13 surrounding counties that we serve, answer any questions you have, and as Guy mentioned, I am a little bit of a data geek. We're going to give you some data, some hard-hitting numbers that kind of give you context and anchor the work that we do here every single day. Does that sound good to you guys? We might also have an opportunity or two to share with you how, if you want to help a little bit, that you can do that as well, okay? All right, so let's get started. Let me first say, Partnership, like I said, has been here for 20 years, but what most folks don't know, it is that it is very much linked to the Department of Children and Families here in the state of Florida. What do I mean by that? About 22 years ago, the state of Florida thought that it would be great if they turned over the reins of what happens in a child welfare system to the actual communities in which those children lived. Sounds like a pretty good idea, right? And so Florida embarked on this really innovative approach with child welfare that you don't see much across the nation, where the actual services for foster care, adoption, prevention, case management are actually in the hands of the community. And so Partnership was born out of that sort of approach here in Florida. That's very innovative that the federal government and other states have been watching for well over 20 years at this point. And when I say that innovation has proven and the outcomes for children and families, that definitely has been the case, not only here in Alachua County, but across the state as well. So Florida is definitely recognized for that. So what I mean by that is this. Partnership for Strong Families is working in direct partnership with Department of Children and Families to serve 13 counties here, surrounding Alachua County being, of course, included in that, to make sure that the voice of the children and families that live in these communities governs what happens in the child welfare system. So our board is made up of folks who live in all of these counties, and they are the ones who guide and direct the service provisions and what happens within that child welfare system, which is pretty amazing and pretty exciting. And I'm very proud to be a part of that for sure. And you know, it's no small feat because we have about 5 service centers and 4 resource centers across all of these 13 counties that do something very special. And so let me kind of explain to you what that looks like. Anytime that abuse, neglect, or abandonment is reported to the state, they send out investigators to decide whether that allegation is founded or not. And if they decide that it is and that we need to intervene on behalf of the child for safety, then Partnership for Strong Family then gets involved. Does that make sense? So everything besides the investigation is what Partnership for Strong Family does for abused, neglected, and abandoned children across all 13 counties. So imagine what a big job and role that is, right? And to have the community on those boards sort of directing that is the key piece of this that's so important. Individuals like yourself and Guy, at partnerships with the Children's Trust, all of those things are extremely important to make sure that these systems run smoothly and that children are protected. So let me just say the full goal of that is that we make sure that families are reunified and can healthily and successfully function without the state or us ever having to be involved again. That is the goal, that every child is safe, that their well-being is cared for, and that they have a permanent home in which they can grow up in. Now, let me ask you this. What do you think is one of the single most important determinants of the outcome of children in this community? Do you have any idea what the research says? I hear a few things. Parenting is definitely important. Healthcare is definitely important. It's all a part of that. It's the actual community in which a parent chooses to live, and that's an interesting word, but the community in which a child grows up in has more to do with how they fare in terms of their adulthood and their well-being than anything else. The systems that operate outside of them, their household in that community, their peers, the communities they live in, that's the biggest determinant of all of that. And so conversations with you guys and different community partners and working together is key. So I really do think the state of Florida was onto something really important when launching this idea about community-based care. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. So I'm wondering if these numbers sort of surprise you. There are about 325 children that receive in-home services in North Central Florida in our 13 counties right now. And that's in-home. That means that they've either been reunified with their parents or we're working with them as a family unit without any sort of formal intervention and removal, okay? But we have about 763 children in those 13 counties who, for their own safety, have been removed from their homes while we work with their parents to reunify them back to those homes if we can, that have had to have placement outside that home, whether that be with another relative, whether that be in foster care, or whether that be in a group setting. Does that number surprise you guys? Did you know it was that high? All right. About 143 of those 763 are in foster care, which is traditional licensed settings, which is a big deal too as well. So I often like to look at the faces as I sort of say those numbers to see how you guys react. So on average, if we just sort of rolled all of that up, we serve about 1,200 kids at any given moment, in home and out of home, that have been abused, neglected, or abandoned. That doesn't count all of the prevention work that we do that haven't been abused or neglected, but we want to make sure that doesn't happen. That's in the tens of thousands, actually. Big, huge prevention sort of work. But what about here in Alachua County where you live? What does that look like? That's probably an interesting statistic for you, isn't it? We have about 222 children that are being served by partnership that are in out-of-home care. So again, that means a call was made to the hotline where an allegation of abuse, neglect, or abandonment occurred. An investigator went out and said, yep, the child is unsafe, we need a formal intervention. And that child was moved to a safer location while we work with the parents to be able to reunify them back. So just here in Alachua County, 222 kids. Yeah. One day I want a job where I'm not needed and that 222 doesn't exist. That is the whole goal. Of those 222, the good news is 67 of them here in Alachua County are placed with a relative. So their whole life isn't completely disrupted in that they go with a relative or non-relative that they know here and actually live with them while we work with their parents to reunify them. So that's good news, right? And then 129 of them are placed in licensed foster care. So this tells you that foster parents and that sort of foster care system is extremely important to the health and well-being of the children in your community. Foster parents are incredibly important and an asset that we have to continuously make sure that we're paying attention to, like Chelsea can attest to, and help grow, because we want this sort of intervention in terms of safety to be as less traumatic as possible for any child that has to come in out of home care. And then we have about 26 kids from Alachua County that are placed in a group setting. And that just means it's not your traditional mother-father home or foster parent mother-father home. That is more of a group setting with multiple kids being placed in one place. Definitely not what you might envision as the old sort of orphanage term. They're not that. They are smaller group homes, usually somewhere less than 6 beds, 6 to 8 beds where kids reside as well. And usually they have some specialized programming and services being delivered there. And then we have about 62 overall licensed foster homes in Alachua County. Are you surprised of that? No, that's too little. We actually need way more than that. And we'll talk about that a little bit today too. So yeah, I hope this gives some context to the work we do and exactly what's happening within your community today. Because again, the goal here is that every child grows up in a community where this sort of intervention isn't needed, and that all of our resources are really focused on that preventative work, which I think child welfare has really evolved to over the course of the last 10 years to sort of see if you get upstream and you really invest in communities and prevention in a different way, then these numbers can definitely be impacted. And so that definitely ties into the mission of Partnership for Strong Families. All right, so I mentioned foster parents and how important they are. That's probably the biggest need that we have as an organization, is to continuously work with and grow our placement array so that when any child comes into our system because of abuse, abandonment, or neglect, that they can be very quickly matched if a relative or non-relative can't step up to a home that meet their individual needs. And so we are continuously striving to grow our foster parent array, and that's really, really important to us. Those foster parents are the backbone of everything we do. Can you imagine if you are, do any of you know anyone who fosters children? I love that hand. So if you know anyone who fosters kids, you know it's a tough job, right? It is very thankless, although we try our best to make sure they feel supported and thanked. And it's very, very confusing because if you think what you're hearing from me today is complex in terms of the number of systems involved, they're navigating all of those. And so foster parents really are the heroes in the system, and we are constantly trying to grow that network of foster parents because our kids need them. Our kids need them desperately. Anyone can be a foster parent. You can kind of see there from the slide. Of course, if you're interested, we have some folks here that would be happy to talk to you afterwards. But foster parents and placement array are one of the key things that we need for the kids in the community. Now, sometimes, even though the primary goal that we have is reunifying families together and maintaining them together, sometimes that can't occur, not safely. And even though we work with families for at least 12 months, sometimes more, making sure that that child is safe to go home, sometimes it ends in a situation where it doesn't appear the child would ever be able to go home safely and reside there. And so when that occurs, with court oversight, intervention, and of course, the parents being able to have their ability to show that in a court setting, then the children's become free for adoption. And we move to an adoption goal. So that's the next sort of big thing that we need, that we have. Foster parents often tend to adopt kids that they've been fostering over time. Relatives adopt kids, that's not unusual. But sometimes we don't have anyone who is there for that child to adopt. We have about 76 children right now that are free for adoption that don't have a matched permanent home, someone to take care of them and to be that mentor and person for them until they reach the age of 18 and even beyond. Because you know, those connections don't go away, not with your children, not with your grandchildren, any of those things. And so adoption is a big piece of what we do as well at Partnership. I have to say our adoption team is amazing. They do amazing things. They set records last year with the amount of adoptions that was finalized, but that is not our primary goal. While we are happy that child has found a forever home, the primary goal that we have is reunification and sustaining the family as a whole unit. But adoption and adoptive families are extremely important, and we're constantly looking for opportunities to be able to match a child in need with a permanent forever home. So that's a service that Partnership does as well here in Alachua County and the surrounding 13 counties. So if you're ready to learn more about any of those things, or you're just intrigued by the message today, the information that I've given you today, then we certainly can Can definitely get you hooked up to more virtual sessions with more in-depth information if you're interested in knowing more. But the primary goal for today was, one, to give you context about the child welfare services in this area, what's happening to children in your own community, and to give you some numbers to sort of anchor that in. So that's really important for us. We want you to know what Partnership has done and continues to do in the prevention realm with our resource centers and our partnership with the Children's Trust, which is extremely important, as well as children who have formal intervention have been removed or the families we're working with in their homes. So hopefully today, this sort of raises some awareness about what Partnership for Strong Families does, what's happening in your community around child welfare, but let's kind of talk about, too, how you can help even further. So even if fostering and adopting isn't something for you, that you know you're not in a position in your life to do that right now, and we certainly understand that. If those of you who raised your hand that know someone who fosters or someone who's adopted or someone who's just a caregiver to a child in the child welfare system, there's little things you can do for them as well that we want to make sure that you're aware of. Just lending a hand, support, even something as small as sometimes if you know someone who's doing that, preparing a meal or helping support them. It gets kind of crazy sometimes for foster parents who have their own kids as well as kids from the foster care system, and they're balancing all that as well as trying to work and do a million and other things. So even if you can't do those formal things, we're constantly looking for opportunities to match folks up to help support foster parents who are doing this work every day. So that's really important as well. There's just sharing awareness. Many of you have lots of connections in this room. If conversations about child welfare come up, if you have an opportunity to talk about Partnership and what we do and can refer folks back to us, that's really important as well. Child welfare is in a really interesting state currently. It is changing, primarily in that who we serve looks a little bit different. And let me just sort of say, what we're starting to see is more teenagers entering our system. It used to be primarily kids under the age of 5 who are your most vulnerable kids, but teenagers entering our system is becoming a very important sort of phenomena that we're not quite equipped to try to figure out. But how many of you have had a really important mentor connection in your life that made that big impact in changing the trajectory of maybe how you thought or even your self-worth and self-esteem? And so those teens coming into our foster care are hungry for that. They've been through a lot. Some of them are angry and feel very disconnected. And so that sort of sense is sort of changed sort of the landscape of child welfare. So if you're interested in any of those mentoring opportunities or just want to connect with a teenage kid to do that, that would be awesome as well. But there's a number of different ways that you can help, even if you're not a foster parent or adoptive family. Just knowing who we are and what we do and being able to have that conversation and spread awareness is pretty big as well. All right, and of course, there's always, just like you guys have, opportunities to help in a fun way. One of the most fun things I think we do every year is Wish Upon a Star. So every Christmas, we, for all of the 1,200 kids across our catchment area, find out from them what is the one thing that would make their Christmas magical. And we try very, very hard to make that come true. And so you can't imagine the hard work, but also the fun of making sure that there is something under that tree at Christmas time to make them feel connected and excited, even if they are in the foster care system and even if they have gone through some of the things they've gone through. So our Wish Upon a Star campaign we do every year, and every year we're able to supply at least one, sometimes 2 or 3 presents to every kid that we serve, all 1,200. Which is pretty amazing. We have some amazing staff who organize all that, get that all out to caregivers, and that every Christmas, no child is waking up to not only the experience of being in foster care, but the experience of not having Christmas. And for some of them, this is sometimes the first time. And that's a pretty amazing sort of thing to see. The reactions and the communication we get back in terms of the excitement of the kids is pretty amazing too. So if there's a way that you wanted to help with that, let us know that too. But we're always looking for grant opportunities. We're always looking for anything that we can do to sort of move outside of the box of what the state of Florida does for child welfare, to do more innovative things for kids that just need normalcy and the things that make kids happy and make them thrive. All right, so there's definitely a slide here of how to contact us, and I think we introduced Miss Chelsea Boland, who is one of our recruitment specialists here as well. But I wanted to see if you guys had any specific questions for me about the child welfare system in general or partnership. Yes, ma'am.
Really pretty simple. So you serve 1,200 kids throughout 13 counties. You serve 222 of them in Alachua County. How many total children are in that catchment area, and how many total children are in Alachua County?
So the 222 are the kids just for Alachua County. So if you take the full 1,200.
Children with that, the whole universe. What's the universe of children in Alachua County and in the catchment area?
You mean the child population?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know it off the top of my head. I don't know the child population as the county.
I'm John Gregory. Our 3 daughters have been adopted.
That's amazing.
And so what happened, though, is that we found out there was a 4th one who was down in Charlotte County. And my kids actually went down to see them. My kids right now are 46 and 45. They're twins, just anyway. I have a question relative to the people who are teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Have they been in more than one foster home or not?
Some of them, absolutely. Some of them have been in multiple foster homes. I have to say the teenage population is definitely the hardest to stabilize inside of child welfare. When I tell you that they've had to develop a very particular set of survival skills, considering the trauma they've gone through, sometimes that's very inconvenient for us as adults. And when I say that some of those teens are angry or some of those teens are very closed off and have a hard time bonding with anyone else, that's absolutely true. Which causes placement stability, right? They don't want to trust anyone anymore. And so you will see those teenagers tend to move from foster home to foster home more often, to the point that sometimes they exhaust our whole foster care array locally, and we have to look outside of our area. So the answer to that is unfortunately yes.
Just quickly, excuse me, I was a little confused about how you're organized. I see a .org. Mm-hmm. But you sound like you're state-sponsored, supervised, I don't know.
Yes, it is very confusing. So we are directly contracted with the state of Florida to deliver prevention, foster care, and adoption services. So we're very much connected to them through a contractual relationship, but we are a nonprofit that's independent that has that contract. But around that contract, there's a lot of statutory and legislative regulation about how that has to be made up, how the board has to be made up, who drives that. When I say the regulation around the community-based care model is pretty heavy. Does that help, though? It's a contractual relationship, and we are a nonprofit. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Your presentation was very moving because it's personal and it's very dear to my heart, because 23 years ago when I came to this country, I was in a foster care. And the way it worked is we were in a refugee camp. So I totally understand when you are begging for parents, because I had to wait for 6 months thinking that no one liked me in America until there was this nice lady from Michigan. God bless her, and she but she allowed us to stay with her. And it was just an incredible experience. And when people give you hope to be where I am today. So my question is, international, I know Gainesville particularly is getting bigger. So when you come here as unaccompanied minor with your baggage of trauma and all this, and I wonder, do you have kids coming international who are unaccompanied minors that may go into your system? For example, do you work with Lutheran Social Services or Catholic Charity? So that's my one question. Finally is the power of storytelling. Do you follow up with all of your students who went where after? Because what I appreciate is when people give you hope is coming back to help the community. and in any way I can to be mentor to your students. I totally understand. I was bullied a lot, that you're just a foster kid, you are just a number. So I understand that aspect. So if there's a way, I would be interested in mentorship. So thank you.
Absolutely. So I heard a two-part question there. So if I missed something, let me know. Your first question was about unaccompanied minors and who serves those. So that is a completely different response that partnership does not do. That is through some state offices and the federal government. They work those unaccompanied minor cases. They're the ones who sort of link them with sponsors and house those separately. Unless it comes through as an abuse or neglect call from a primary caregiver, those children aren't served through partnership. But certainly there is some overlap in that sometimes those children do come into the child welfare system through a different way, but not primarily just as an unaccompanied minor. There are separate programs and separate interventions for unaccompanied minors that come in. So yes, the placement array looks maybe similar, but partnership doesn't necessarily get called to serve an unaccompanied minor. A child has to be abused, neglected, or abandoned by their caregiver in this country for us to be able to serve those kids. The second part of your question, I think, is a lovely one, which is follow-up. Yes, follow-up is really, really important. We look at follow-up in a couple of ways. One, we measure constantly how many of our families that we serve are able to go on and never need our support formally. Again, that's a success for us, right? That they don't get a new abuse report call, that they don't have another removal, that they're able to be reunified and sustain that reunification through the skills, therapy, and services that we've been able to either teach them to access or that they've been able to put in operation in their households so that that abuse or neglect or that danger threat doesn't occur again. That data is readily available, not only on our website, but also on the state's website. There are very transparent dashboards that you can take a look at that. Where I'm really interested is when I mentioned the teens, that follow-up work that we do with teens once they reach 18 expands beyond just 18, right? So it could go all the way to 22, 24, depending on the child, with things like extended foster care or independent living programs. And so that follow-up to us is really, really important because you don't want to just know if your intervention is quality, you want to know if it's long-lasting. And so there are quite a few metrics and opportunities for youth panels, parent advisory councils locally to be able to give us that feedback as well. So I love that question. It's a really, really important one.
Two-part question. First part, what's the average age of the children you are serving now? And what's the typical age when they first come to you for services, when they're brought to you?
All right, so they could come to us on day one when they're born, all the way through the day before they turn 18. They absolutely could come to us that way. So the age is pretty 0 to 18. It's pretty much, well, 17 and, right before they turn 18. So they can come to us at any time there. The average age, as I started to say, has shifted. It definitely used to be 5 or under. And usually we had mostly 0 to 3 years was the primary removal age for us in which we served kids. But we've started to see that sort of move until even though babies primarily are the removal children that we serve initially, we've seen that start to creep up to more your 10-year-olds, your 9-year-olds, and your teenagers, for sure.
Okay, so I have a question. I've been an unofficial foster mom for many children.
Thank you.
Sometimes just a weekend mom, sometimes year-long mom. And I found that the one thing that I really need to somehow move forward on is the issue with transportation. And I've brought it up to Brennan several times. I'd really like to see something that could partner maybe locally, but it could actually go nationally, that there would be some way for me as a mom trying to juggle maybe sometimes 4 children in aftercare. They want to do something in the summertime, or they want to do something after school that's really important to them. They can't always get there. And so I really like to see that somehow get off the ground, that either as part of an Uber, that maybe local communities could help sponsor these Uber drivers, that it would be a separate category of Uber. I don't know if that's been dreamt of, but I can tell you as a mom, I'm like, oh my God, kids have to be at a certain age, but Uber is being used more for that, but oh my goodness, would that be a huge help for a mom like me? So I just want to put it out there.
No, you literally just talked about a point that the guardian ad litem office directors and I were speaking on yesterday. I don't think folks understand with those 1,200 kids how much transportation is involved, right? So here's sort of things we don't think about. Every time a child changes a placement, oftentimes they are also changing schools, right? And so a foster parent could have multiple children in their home who would go to multiple schools. And that's really, really hard for a foster parent to try to get them to all to those different schools. All of them typically, not all, but most, have the therapy sessions as well, right? So getting them to therapy. We also want normalcy for them, right? So they have after-school activities, we hope. So there's getting them to that place as well. Oftentimes, if they're at the appropriate age, we want them included in the court hearings, if that's appropriate. They need to hear all of those things that are going on. If we don't want anything about them without them. And so this becomes a massive transportation issue. You only have so many caseworkers, and when you think about the amount of travel that not only foster parents are doing, but that caseworkers are doing to make sure that these children get everywhere they need to get, is massive. And we even used the Uber term. That's so funny you used it, because we have family support workers who help our caseworkers to try to do that. But even that isn't enough. I mean, literally our office, I'm going to use Trenton as an example in Gilchrist County because it's so rural. They were transporting 15 kids every morning across multiple county lines, picking them up and trying to get them to school and back between caseworkers and making that happen. And it might not sound like a lot, but it is when you're going multiple counties across all 13 areas. And so a very valid point for sure.
Jenny has one question from Zoom. Maybe I can get it in more quick. First of all, thank you, by the way. I'm adopted, so thank you personally before I ask her question. One of our questions, I'm only going to get one in before Ryan pulls the hook, is do you work with other adoption agencies in town, Catholic charities, or Christian family services?
Certainly we have partnerships with them, but there are two separate sort of lanes that you can do adoption. You can do private adoptions, or you can adopt through the child welfare system. In terms of a direct service, partnership does the adoption work themselves in-house with the help of local attorneys to make that happen. But we, of course, do have relationships, conversations, and tangential involvement with adoption agencies that are private as well.
If you don't mind staying up here for a second. Well, Ginger, thank you so much for being here and sharing with us. I'm adopted as well. Really appreciate what you do for our community. On behalf of our club, we'd like to make a donation to the Child Center for Early Learning on your behalf. Thank you. Next week's speaker, not tomorrow, next Tuesday, Coach Kelly Ray Finley, the UF women's basketball coach, will be speaking with us. The quote of the day, we must take care of our families wherever we find them, Elizabeth Gilbert. The Rotary Reading Safari drawing number is 508. 508. The meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, sir. I didn't know you were adopted too, man. Yeah, all right. New club we're starting.
Yeah.